Hello, the student of class 10. Today we will read the first flight book, the lesson number 2, Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom. Nelson Mandela has become the first black president of the South Africa after more than 3 centuries white rule. Let's read the lesson. 10th May dawned bright and clear. For the past few days I had been pleasantly besieged by dignitaries and world leaders who were coming to pay their respects before the inauguration. The inauguration would be the largest gathering of international leaders on South Africa soil. 10th May, when Nelson Mandela was taking the oath of the first black president, all the nation's dignitaries were coming to the soil of South Africa. The ceremony took place in the lovely sandstone amphitheater formed by the Union buildings in Pretoria. For the decades, this has been the seat of white supremacy, and now it was the site of a rainbow gathering of different colors and nations for the installation of South Africa's first democratic non-racial government. On the lovely autumn day, I was accompanied by my daughter Janani. Nelson Mandela described about the oath ceremony of his first as a black first president, Dr. Janani on the podium. Mr. de Klerk was first sworn as the second deputy president. Then Thabo Mbeki was sworn in as the first deputy president. When it was my turn, I pledged to obey and uphold the Constitution and to devote myself to the well-being of the Republic and its people. To the assembled guests and the watching world, I said, inauguration when addressed to the people, say, first take the oath as a sworn as second deputy president, Mr. de Klerk, and Thabo Mbeki was sworn as the first deputy president. He addressed, today all of us do by our presence here confer glory and hope to newborn liberty. Out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long, must be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. We who were outlaws not so long ago have today been given the rare privilege to be hosts of the nations of the world on our own soil. We thank all of our distinguished international guests for having come to take procession with the people of our country of what is after all a common victory for justice, for peace and human dignity. He addresses to the people that no any kinds of racial and inhumane behavior will be done here. We have at last achieved our political emancipation. We pledge ourselves to liberate all our people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender and other discrimination. Never and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the procession of one by another. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign. God bless Africa. A few moments later, we all lifted our eyes in awe as a spectacular array of South African jets helicopters and troops carried rolled in perfect formation over the Union buildings. It was not only a display of pinpoint precision and military force, but a demonstration of the military loyalty to democracy, to a new government that had been freely and fairly elected only moments before. The highest generals of South African Defence Force and police, their chests blackened with ribbons and medals from days gone by, saluted me and placed after loyalty. I was not unmindful of the fact that not so many years before they would not have saluted but arrested me. Finally, a chevron of Impala jet left a smoke trail of the black, red, green, blue, and gold of the new South African flag. Nelson Mandela addressed in this passage that no more longer than the African military force and police did not saluted them, but now they paid their loyalty. The day was symbolized for me by the playing of our two national anthems and the vision of whites singing Nkosi Sikelel Africa and blacks singing Die Stem, the old anthem of the Republic. Although that day neither group knew the lyrics of the anthems they once despised, they would soon know the word by heart. At the occasion of that, the two national anthems were sung by the white pupils and the black pupils. On the day of the inauguration, I was overwhelmed with a sense of history. In the first decade of the 20th century, a few years after the brighter Anglo-Boer War, better Anglo-Boer War, and before my own birth, the white-skinned peoples of the South Africa passed up their differences and created a system of racial dominations against the dark-skinned people of their own land. The structure they created formed the basis of one of the harshest, most inhumane societies the world has ever known. Now, in the first decade of the 20th century, and my own 8th decade as a man, that system had been overturned forever and replaced by one that recognized the rights and freedoms of all people regardless of the color of their skin. Mandela denounced about the inhuman behavior of the white people on the black people. That day had come about through the unimaginable sacrifices of thousands of my people counted, people whose sufferings and courage can never be counted or repaid. I felt that day, as I have on so many other days, that I was simply the sum of all those African patriots who had gone before me. That long and noble line ended and new began again with me. I was pained that I was not able to thank them and that they were not able to see that their sacrifices had wrought. The policy of apartheid created a deep and lasting wound in my country and my people. All of us will spend many years, if not generations, recovering from that profound hurt, but the decades of oppression and brutality had another unintended effect, and that was that it produced Oliver Tambo's, the Walter Sisulu's, the Chief Lithulis, and the Yusuf Dadus, the Bram Wizards, the Robert Subakos of the time, men of such extraordinary courage, wisdom, and generosity that their like many never be known again. Perhaps it requires such
To create such height of characters. My country is rich in minerals. My country is rich in rich minerals and gems that lie beneath its soil. But I have always known that its great wealth is its people finer and truer than the purest diamonds. It is from these comrades in the struggle that I learn the meaning of courage. Time and again, I have seen men and women risk and give their lives for an idea. I have seen men stand up to attacks and torture without breaking, showing a strength and resilience that defies the imagination. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fears. No one is born hating another person because of the color of the skin or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. Or love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. Even in the grimmest times in prison, when my comrades and I were pushed to our limits, I would see a glimmer of humanity in one of the guards, perhaps just for a second, but it was enough to restore me and keep me going. Man's goodness is a trait that can be hidden, but never extinguished. In life, every man has twin obligations to his family and his parents, to his wife and children, and he has an obligation to his people, his community, his country. In a civil and humane society, each man is able to fulfill these obligations according to his own inclinations and abilities. But in a country like South Africa, it was almost impossible for a man of my birth and color to fulfill both of those obligations in South Africa. A man of color who attempted to live as a human being was published and isolated. In South Africa, a man who tried to fulfill his duty to his people was inevitably ripped from his family and his home and was forced to live a life apart, a twilight experience of secrecy and rebellion. I did not in the beginning choose to place my people ever my family, but in attempting to serve my people, I found that I was prevented from fulfilling my obligations as a son, a brother, a father, and a husband. I was not born with hunger to be free. I was born free in every way that I could know, free to run in the fields near my mother's hut, free to swim in the clear stream that ran through my village, free to roast mealies under the stars and ride the broad backs of slow-moving bulls. As long as I obeyed my father and headed by the guidance of my tribe, I was not troubled by the law of man or God. It was only when I began to learn that my boyhood freedom was an illusion, when I discovered as a young man that my freedom had already been taken from me, that I began to hunger or in. At first, as a student, I wanted freedom only for myself. The the transitory freedoms of being able to stay out of my trade when I please and go where I choose. Later, as a young man in Johannesburg, I yearned for the basic and honorable freedoms of achieving my potential of earning my keep of my range and having a family, the freedom not to be obstructed in a lawful life. But then I slowly saw that not only was I not free, but my brothers and sisters were not free. I saw that it was not just my freedom that was curtailed, but the freedom of everyone who looked like I did. That is when I joined the African National Congress, and that is when the hunger for my own freedom became the greater hunger for the freedom of my people. It was this desire for the freedom of my people to live their lives with dignity and self-respect that animated my life. It transformed a frightened young man into a bold one that proved a law-abiding attorney to become a criminal that turned a family-loving husband into a man without a home, that forced a loving man to live like a monk. I am now more virtuous or self-sacrificing than the next man, but I found that I could not even enjoy the poor and limited freedoms I was allowed when I knew my people were not free. Freedom is indivisible. The chains on any one of my people were the chains on all them. The chains on all of my people were the chains on me. I knew that the oppressor must be liberated just as surely as the oppressed. A man who takes away another man's freedom is a prisoner of hatred. He is locked behind the bars of prejudice and narrow-mindedness. I am not truly free if I am taking away someone else's freedom, just as surely as I am not free when my freedom is taken from me. The oppressed and the oppressor like are robbed of their humanity. Now, see at the whiteboard, summary observation. Long Walk to Freedom is an excerpt from the autobiography of former South African President Nelson Mandela, first published in 1994. The Long Walk to Freedom covers the entire lifespan of the African president from his youth in apartheid South Africa, his coming of age and education, his embrace of political activism, and his role in the anti-apartheid movement. It talks of 27 years long prison term after being arrested as a terrorist, or the role he played as the leader of the outlawed African National Congress. Nelson Mandela was born on 18th July 1918 and went on to become the first South African president in a fully representative democratic election. The lesson deals with the inauguration swearing in of Nelson Mandela along with his team. The swearing ceremony of President Nelson Mandela was held at the Sandstone Amphitheatre, followed by the Union Building in Pretoria. What made the ceremony unique was the rainbow gathering comprising of people of different nations and colors. The occasion was marked by the playing of the two national anthems with the whites singing Neposi Sikalel Africa and the blacks singing Dying Stem, the old anthem of the Republic. The lesson is the inaugural address by the President. Through this address, President Mandela gives us a deep insight into his character, his thought process, his wisdom, his ideology, and all its that or defines him as an activist, a political leader, and above all, a human being. Now, look the page number 18. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Homework 1, 2, 3, and 4. Page number 18. Page number 18. Now your lesson has completed.